Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome back to Final Trade. Well, here we are. So, I had been promising you for about the last week that I would sit down and once the time was right and certain things had gotten out of the way, I would make a video updating you on everything having to do with the store. So, yesterday I got with my realtor. I signed the lease for the location. It's a very nice spot. It's in very good condition. And I will be able to start moving in on December 1st. The current tenant technically has the place until January 1st, but he wants to leave early. We worked it out, so I'll be in there for a couple of months before I technically start the 3 year lease term, and then that will run through the end of February of 2029. So it will be something like 3 years and 3 months for the lease term on the initial lease that's already signed. So I'm very happy to have gotten that out of the way. Now, the other big thing that's been going on this week is this past week was my last week working in my professional career. So I had been on a internal research and development program for about the last 12 months, in the company that I've been working for, and that program was getting picked up by the government and being turned into a full-fledged regular program. And when that happened, the program was going to become classified, and we were going to have to start working in a secure room, which meant 40 hours a week in the office and commuting in every day. And frankly, I said, I'm not going back to that. I did skiff work from 2018 through the end of 2019 and then most of 2020 on a different program. And I just flat was not interested in going back to that life, sitting in a dungeon with no windows, 40 hours a week in the office. And so from about December of 2020 until, well, last week, I was almost completely work from home. So nearly 5 years that I worked from home 90% plus, really 98% plus work from home, very rarely going into the office. And I'm just too old for that. I'm too old to go back to working in a skiff, that awful kind of environment, no windows, no natural light, stuck inside all day like that. And especially after having grown Final Trade the way that it's grown in, over nearly the last 5 years now, and being ready to make the leap into a store and expanding the business and everything else that I had planned. And so I saw this coming about 4 or 5 months ago that the program I was working on was moving towards getting picked up by the government and going dark, and that I would be pretty much ready to open a store. It was close enough that I could jump from here, as the old joke goes. And so I had started working with the realtor probably about 3 months ago, looking at spaces, trying to find something, and also maneuvering my career, trying to figure out when I could drag things out to in order to kind of milk it the most I could before I quit. And so things kind of came out that Wednesday this past week was the day that the government was going to pick up our contract. And I guess that didn't quite happen. It's 1 or 2 days off, whatever. I had already put in my 2 weeks notice. Sadly, I did not get walked out with a 2 week severance. As soon as I put in my notice, like most people do, they wanted me to go ahead and continue working during my notice period. So, whatever. But that's over now. My career is technically ended. And so Final Trade is my full-time job now. So here we are. After many years of discussing it, after always seeing this kind of blurry off in the horizon that I would eventually end up in this position, but never really seeing what the path was to get here. But now here we are. So I've got a lot of work to do over the next 2 months. There's a bunch of the little kind of technical things you have to work out. I already filed with the state comptroller to move my sales tax certificate to the new location. Little junk like that you have to do. But there's a lot more things like ordering all the fixtures and furniture and stuff for the store. I'm have a lot of that identified. I'm going to start purchasing it. I'm currently working on trying to figure out exactly how I want to lay out the store. There is a little bit of difficulty with that, just kind of trying to make everything fit and be workable, be somewhat efficient, and then leave enough space for people to come in and play. So there'll be a lot of that. I plan, like I said, to get into the place on December 1st. It's probably going to take me 1 or 2 or 3 weeks to set up, get everything installed, moved in, all of that, and then have a soft opening sometime the second or third week of December. And then I will probably do a grand opening of the store on January 4th, which will be the um, anniversary of Final Trade beginning. So January 4th of 2021 was the day I filed paperwork with the state of Texas to begin Final Trade. And so it's fitting that 5 years later on that date, we will have the grand opening of the store. So that is kind of the tentative plan right now. Like I said, there's two, three, 400 things I need to do between now and then to get everything ready. But we're going to keep going and just take every day as it gets here and figure everything out like we've always done here at Final Trade. So everything's gone amazing so far. The last 4 plus, nearly 5 years. It's unbelievable to me the kind of wonderful feedback I get from people, the kind of kind messages, the kind of just wonderful engagement, and everything else that I get from people on YouTube, from my patrons, from everyone that I talk to about things. So I am so very optimistic. And it's funny because I look back at like my final newsletter that I did for 2024 for the patron program and how optimistic I was then about what I expected in 2025. And at that point when I wrote that newsletter back in December, I had no idea when I would get into a store. I had no idea that the program I was working on in my professional career was going to get picked up by the government, and we were going to kind of have my hand forced because I refused to go back into the skiff life. And I didn't know that at the time, and I was still so optimistic. And now I feel even more optimistic today for what's coming, for all the opportunity this is going to open up, and everything in the future. So I kind of hinted that I had a lot of wild ideas for things, that I had some passion projects I'm working on that I wanted to tease. So, one of my kids kind of comically asked me if we could have an arm wrestling competition at the store, and I told him, that's probably a good idea. At some point, we will work on organizing the annual Final Trade Arlington Citywide Arm Wrestling Championships. So don't hold your breath for it, but that's definitely something I'm going to organize at some point. Um, I'm working on a bit of a passion project, which is a TCG. I know you're insane if you want to release your own TCG. I'm doing this just as something fun and interesting. I don't expect to make money off of it. I intend to do all the production myself, the printing, the packaging, and everything. And so my goal for it is to make a fun, fast-paced TCG that relies on Magic's rules and plays very, very quickly. That's the idea that I have. I've been working on it for about 4 months now. The initial set of 150 cards is nearly complete. I've started playtesting and I'm working on the first expansion set of probably 100 cards, is what the expansion sets will be. But there are a lot of things that I want to explore with it. Things like, how do you tie the flavor of a game in better? How can you use the flavor text to make it interesting? How does the artwork help mold the game and playability and making it interesting and fun? How do you mix mechanical playability with that flavor? And so a lot of interesting ideas that I want to explore and experience and have fun with designing a game. And like I said, if it breaks even against the printing machines that I will need to buy to produce it, that would be my goal. So, no, it will not be collectible nor investable. It will not be some type of big money maker. It is strictly a passion project, but you'll hear more about it in a while. Don't expect to hear a lot about it anytime soon because I will be doing play testing and additional design for many more months. So it'll be a long time before there's anything much to announce with that. So those are two of the ideas that I have. There are many, many, many more. I have a long list of fun and interesting business ideas that I am pursuing that I am always crawling towards. And, if there's one lesson, it's that if you have the ability to grow your business slowly, you can really lay a great foundation and keep building on it for a long time. And that's something I had the ability to do because of two things, essentially my professional career and the income that gave me, and then the success I've had over the last 20 years investing. And so both of those things have given me the ability to grow Final Trade slowly over the last 5 years, to build a foundation that was unbelievably strong, and to do things the right way without taking a lot of risks that would ever put the business in jeopardy. And so that's built something that now is such an unbelievably strong and successful business that it's going to give me these additional opportunities to pursue crazy ideas like citywide arm wrestling championship and, more reasonable ideas for the business, many of which will be coming in the coming months and years. So, guys, thank you to everyone who has helped me get here, all the patrons who continue to support me, everybody who participates in the sealed sales, everybody who purchases from the monthly sales list, everyone who just sends the kind words and the kind comments. I'm so excited for the future, and it's going to be an incredible next 3, 4, 5 months getting the store started, getting everything set up, and finally realizing a lot of the ideas that I've had and accumulated for the last couple of years for Final Trade. So put your questions down below and I'll make some follow-up videos and answer them, and we'll see how things continue to go. Thanks to everyone who makes this content possible, especially my very generous supporters on Patreon. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and join me on Final Trade.